Hello everyone, the temperatures are going down, so we need to think about winterizing. So we today will do a little video on the winterization process, same thing as we described in the user manual, so you can always go to the user manual and refer to it for winterization, but it's a little bit more fun to do those videos, maybe a little bit easier for you to check on all the steps you need to accomplish. So let's do that together. So before we start the winterizing process, make sure that you take the time to drain the black and the gray water tank. So it's part of the steps described in the owner's manual, but it's important that you make sure to drain both of the tanks before we do the winterization process. Now, another thing you can do, and we don't go into all the preventive maintenance you can do for the winter, but one nice thing to do is those handles can be greased or lubricated before the winter, so it can be a good timing as you're doing the winterization process to take care of those two pull-out handles. So before we start the winterization process, you will need a few things with you. First thing is you need some plumbing antifreeze. Make sure to buy the RV plumbing antifreeze, not the car style, because the car antifreeze will come with some toxic product. So we really want to have an RV drawing or picture or RV safe. And then you have different antifreeze minus 30 Celsius or minus 50 Celsius. So you have to judge about what kind of temperature you have in your area, but if you're in doubt, just go for minus 50 and then you'll be good for any kind of conditions. You will need a compressor to blow the air out of the plumbing lines. So in the demonstration, we're going to use the ProMaster supplied compressor. So every one of you have one of those in your RVs. So find it and you will be able to use it. And you will also need an adapter to connect to the water line system. So this is the adapter we're going to use. You can buy that off different hardware store. It attached to the plumbing system, and then you have a little bicycle valve on the other end to attach to the compressor. That's the one we're going to use today. If you are going to be using a real compressor or an industrial compressor, you would need an adapter like that again to connect on the plumbing system and the other side to connect directly on the compressor. So with that in hand, let's start the winterizing process. So the first thing to think about is to shut off the water pump, little switch here. So you want to press this switch down. You will have the green light go off, so you don't want to see the green light. So when the pump is off, then we're ready to start. So we're going to start by draining the freshwater tank. We will open this door to access to the freshwater tank compartment. Now always remember, close that door back. Be careful while you do the winterization process. You don't want to forget about this door and slam this door shut and explode this little door here. So always remember, close it back. First thing we're going to do to drain the tank, there is a little valve to the right of the water pump. It's right into the floor of the RV. We want to open that valve, put it in line with the blue tube, and then if you look, the result of this will be that the water is now draining under the truck. So we want to drain all the water, make sure that we completely eliminate any water from the freshwater tank. If there is a little slope down to your truck, think about this. You might want to bring the nose up a little bit to make sure that all the water is drained. And when the water has completely drained, we want to turn the valve back to its regular position. So we want to put it perpendicular to the blue tube, and then we want to close that door back and proceed to the next step. Next step is that we want to drain the Truma Combi, the water heater and the heater, but mainly the water heater. We want to drain all the water from the tank to make sure it doesn't freeze up. So the first thing we need to do before we do that is we want to go in the Truma control panel, make sure that the water heater is turned off. The heater should also be turned off while we do those steps. So when the Truma is off, now we're going to access to the Truma valve panel. So this is going to be that little panel here to the left of the converter in the cargo area. You pop this panel open, and then you will see a yellow valve right here on the floor. So you want to open that valve. As soon as you open that valve, the Truma will drain and you will see some water coming out of the truck under the truck like that. So now make sure that you drain everything. When no water is coming out of the Truma and it's completely dry, you want to turn the yellow valve back to its normal position. So you want to flip it 90 degrees like it was before you open it. So now it's important to define what model year you have. If your truck was made before 2022, if it's 2019, 2020, 2021, you probably have 3 chrome valves like this system here. So the last step, once the Truma has completely drained, like I explained, we want to make sure to put that yellow valve back into its normal position, and then each valve that you see needs to be turned in the opposite position. So first one to the left needs to be closed, the one in the middle needs to be open, and the one on the right tube needs to be closed. So now all the valves have been flipped to the winterizing position. Now, if you have a 2022 model and plus, we have a different system. Instead of the 3 valves, we only have 1 valve, that black plastic valve. It's a bypass valve. So you simply have to turn it sideways, pointing towards the red tube, and this will be the only operation you will have to do, and we can move to the next step. So now it's time to use the compressor to blow air out of of all the piping inside the Panoramic. So very important thing, make sure when you use this compressor that this valve here is pointing towards the little bicycle pump icon and not towards the puncture tire. If you turn it towards the puncture tire, the sealant will blow out of the tube and it will be a total mess. So make sure this valve here is pointing towards that bicycle pump at all time. Then you can use that little adapter. I removed the plastic end of that. I'm just screwing it, whoops, into the intake for the water. I have connected my little compressor to the lighter plug of the truck, or the 12-volt outlet in the dash. And then I'm connecting my compressor. So before I start the compressor, we want to make sure that we have the faucet open, or some kind of way out for the air, because we don't want to build some overpressure. I don't want to see the pressure on the gauge go higher than 45 psi. So you can keep an eye on the gauge. Normally when you start the compressor and you're blowing air off, you will see the pressure coming up a little bit, up to 45. But then as the water goes out of the system, the pressure will drop down. So it's always a good sign. So again, make sure to have one of the faucet, the kitchen faucet, open to not create an excess pressure. So now I will start the compressor, and then I will go through every water appliance or every faucet to open them and make sure that the air is blowing. So now the compressor keeps running and pushing pressure in the different piping of the Panoramic. We want to go around every faucet and make sure that all the water is pushed out of the system. So we want to open the little shower head, we want to open red and, well, hot and cold water, make sure that the water is flowing out of there and that there is no more water coming out. We also want to go inside the Panoramic and we want to rotate the kitchen faucet from cold to cold to hot water. Make sure that all the water is coming out and that we just have air coming out. We also want to press the pedal of the toilet to make sure that again all the water is out of the system and that we have air coming out of the toilet. And we want to do the same thing with the shower. You can point it in the toilet and you want to open the water valve and make sure that all the water came out of the system nicely and that we have completely drained all the water from all the components of the Panoramic, and then we're going to be able to move to the next step. So now we are getting on to one of the last steps, the antifreeze liquid that we want to put into all of the plumbing system. So we will do that by opening this door and pulling out the winterization tubing that is supplied and connected with all the Panoramic, most of them, at least I would say 2019, 2020 and up, they all have that little tube. If you have a previous model Panoramic, then you should refer to the owner manual. Otherwise, when you have pulled out that tube, there is a little valve, a three-way valve on the side. You need to look at it here. So that three-way valve, the black plastic valve, needs to be pointed up right towards the red tube. And then we will be ready to move on to the next step. But before we move on to the next step, make sure that all the faucets, all the appliances have been closed. So kitchen faucet is closed, the little shower on the side, everything is closed there. Same thing for the shower valve is closed, and then we'll be moving to the next step. So the next step is that we're going to take that red tube, we're going to insert it in the antifreeze gallon there, and then we're going to go inside for the next step. So now we're going to start the water pump, and the first thing you will hear is the pump sipping the liquid out of the antifreeze for a few seconds. Then the pump will stop because it filled with liquids, and then the first thing you will do is you will open to the cold water position the kitchen faucet. You see air coming out until you see the red liquid. When the red liquid appears, you switch to the hot water. You see all the air is coming out. So you want to make sure you see the antifreeze. When the red liquid is coming out, then you are completed for the kitchen faucet, and you want to move to the next water source. So you want to go outside. You want to open on the exterior shower. You want to open the cold water until the red liquid comes out, the red antifreeze. Then you want to close the cold water. You want to open the hot water of the exterior shower until you see the red liquid coming out. Then you want to close it back. Then you want to go to the interior shower. You want to open the valve, and again you want to make sure the liquid is coming out when the water is turned to cold and when the water is turned to hot. So when you see the red liquid coming out of those two sides of the shower, then you can go to the toilet. Remember, very important part is to flush the toilet. Press the pedal until you see that red liquid coming out. Now, during the process, you will need at least 2 gallons of antifreeze. So if you keep an eye on the bottle at the back, if you see the liquid is almost to the end, change to another gallon of antifreeze, and make sure you have antifreeze all around the piping, exactly like we did just now. So one of the last step in the winterization process will be, now that we have we made sure that we have antifreeze coming out of all the different water source, we now can close the water pump, so you can shut off the water pump switch on the monitor, and then we need to put some antifreeze in all of the drain systems. So we want to put some antifreeze, and I don't have much left, but you want to put at least a quarter of antifreeze directly in the sink here to winterize the P-trap. We also want to put some antifreeze here in the toilet, again a quarter of a liter at least, to keep a good seal here and to maintain it during the winter. And we also want to put some antifreeze in the shower drain. So these three things need to receive a good quantity of liquid. If you're not sure how much, put more than less, and you're going to be better off with the larger quantities. So I think that we covered everything on the winterization. The only part we didn't see is the macerator. So if you have a macerator, you also want to make sure that you're going to put a larger quantity of antifreeze in the toilet. You're going to flush that, so you have some antifreeze in the black tank below. And then you will want to go outside, pull the macerator, pull the black tank handle, and then you want to flip the switch of the macerator to make it run. So you want to make sure there will be antifreeze within the macerator, because if you have water holding there and everything freezes up, it's going to break your macerator. So make sure to put that in the toilet, go into the black tank, pull the handle, and run the macerator for just a few seconds until that liquid goes into the macerator. So I hope that was helpful for you. I hope we covered everything. If we forgot something, we will try to add it in some extra feature at the end of this video, but hopefully we did that quick. But you should be able with this video to complete the winterization on your own now. Thank you very much. Have a good winter.